Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 7 and 21, we read, "Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Verily I say unto you, if you have faith and doubt not, if you shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, it shall be done. And all things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive." Paramhansa Yogananda showed by his own example that prayer is a power, provided we believe deeply in that power. When our thoughts and feelings are strongly focused and then united in growing awareness to the divine presence within, they can bring even seemingly unrealistic wishes to fulfillment. When Paramhansa Yogananda was in charge of a school in Ranchi, India, he took the boys on an occasional outings to the surrounding countryside. There was a waterfall not far away. He told Swami Kriyananda, where I took them sometimes, it was dangerous to cross there. But I would cry out to the boys, "Do you believe in God?" "Yes," they would shout back enthusiastically. And so we always crossed in safety. Years later, after I'd gone to America, one of the teachers tried to do the same thing, but he lacked spiritual power. One of the boys slipped on a rock and was drowned. Thus the master explained, belief alone is not enough. It must be united to one-pointed awareness, which leads to self-realization. The Bhagavad Gita, in the 6th chapter, underscores the necessity for such one-pointed concentration. Whenever the mind, fickle and restless, wanders off from its concentration, let the meditating yogi withdraw it resolutely, spurning every distraction, no matter how alluring, and bring it back again and again under the control of the self. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Thank you, Janet. Beautiful. Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Just like Yogananda's students, right? We say, yes, we believe in God. And just like them, we will safely pass through every obstacle, every difficulty in our life when we really embrace the power of prayer and faith. So today, faith is a call to prayer, and prayer is a call to faith. And today we're answering that prayer together. With great faith in the power of God and Guru, we can sail through everything. We can climb mountains. We can overcome every difficulty in life with God's power and that faith in that power. And so for Whispers from Eternity, a prayer poem, and Yogananda says, pray with concentration and demand. So maybe close your eyes and lift your awareness at the point between the eyebrows and really allow yourself to absorb these amazing words. Reinforce thou all our blended prayers. The streamlets of our prayers rush out and conjoin with the well springs of our hearts, uniting in a single mighty flow. Our broad, deep-flowing rivers of prayer move swiftly towards thy oceanic presence, breaking all narrow embankments of indifference, dissolving every eddy and large whirlpool of worldly desire, flowing freely over the protruding rocks of bad habits and straightening the once winding ways of delusion. Our great river of devotion crosses sands of human oblivion, uncounted lives lost in eternity to present memory, and inundates every trace of past trials and painful past experience. Yet even now thy shores seem far away. Doggedly our flood moves out towards thy sea of shining vastness. Pour thou unceasingly the rainbow drops of thy mercy, swelling the flood of our prayers, that they reach at last triumphantly thine ever-waiting shores. So, there was once a very, very popular minister. He had this beautiful big church, and he gave his whole heart and his whole soul to talking to his congregation and teaching them about prayer, teaching them about love, and bringing them together week after week. And then he passed away, and he goes to heaven. And he goes and he waits there, and he looks, and he's like, nobody's there. He was thinking it was going to be all these angels and beloved spirit and God, and everyone was going to be there for him. And he just sat, and he waited, and he waited, and nobody came. All of a sudden, he saw this shabby man, and he comes up. He must have passed over, and hallelujah, it was amazing. All the angels came, all the beings of light, they all showed up, and there was St. Peter at the gate, and he was standing there with his heart open, and the minister said, what's going on here? Who is this guy? Don't you know I've been waiting here? I've dedicated my whole life to serving God. And St. Peter said, oh, this is Mike. He's a taxi driver from in the city. And so, but I'm a priest. I've been a minister at the church. I've given everything I've had. I've spent my whole life teaching people how to pray and love God. Well, said St. Peter, people have been praying much more intensely and frequently in Mike's cab than in your church. So Yogananda said to pray with devotion, with demand, with concentration, and with simplicity. Nayaswami Asha, when she wrote her beautiful book, Loved and Protected, and actually Kyle wrote a beautiful story, and if you ever visit it, about her mom and lost keys and the power of prayer. And when someone asked Asha, do you believe in the power of prayer? She said, yes. But she said, I was not prepared for writing the book and listening to the interviews and listening to what people wrote and how beautifully people's heart were broken open with such a sincere understanding that God is with us in such a beautiful, gentle way. Our protector, he's always there with us, and that the light and the love and the understanding and the faith that were in their eyes when they told their stories really transformed Asha's understanding of prayer and belief. They had such knowing, and they knew that the tenderness and the sensitivity, how God responds to us all was in such a beautiful, personable way. There's a story of a man in India who went to the most memorable talk, and Nayaswami Devi talked about this. And he went to this beautiful, beautiful venue. There was thousands of people there, and there was this beautiful music. I think Dhuti was there, and with all kinds of guitars, and there was drums, and people were singing, and then there were two chants, and then the kirtan went off, and the man stood up, and he said, everything that happens is for our highest and best good, sent to us by the divine. And he walked off. And there was the whole band of beautiful musicians came up, and they did another beautiful heart-opening chant. They walked off, and he said, everything that happens to us is for our highest and best good, sent to us by the divine. And he walks off. One more time, the kirtan group comes up, sings, Pole Star of My Life, and walks off, and he says, everything that happens to us is for our highest and best good, sent to us by the divine. Namaste, and he walked off. And it was the most memorable talk because it was a simple prayer. It was a simple confirmation of our faith. And that single statement, it answers everything, that God is with us in everything, and wanting us to know that when we go through our difficult times in life, it's Him purifying us so that we can have more room inside of us for God, that we can become fearless and we can become doubtless, and more we can embody all the great qualities, all those aspects of the divine, living in deep devotion, seeing the light in everything, having immeasurable joy keep welling up within us, feeling peace and calmness in everything we do, hearing the cosmic vibration more and more, where we're able to develop faith, we're able to embody those qualities. And so this is all about prayer being a deepening of our bond with God. You know, Dana talked about it 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks we've dedicated to prayer. And, you know, she talked about that because God knows everything, you know, it's really, we're not praying for God, we're praying for our reconnection with God. You know, think about if you talk to a friend, you know, once a year, you just check up maybe around Christmas time, you know, or what about a friend that you're talking to every month or every week or every day, right? That closeness, it really grows, and that connection grows, and you're more and more, you're attuned and connected, and that bond begins to build more and more, and a loving connection is born more and more. So when we answer this call, as we're asked today to answer this calling, a calling for prayer and deepening our faith, the more we see that restlessness and indifference does not work. You know, it can be so simple. Just be with me, God. I love you, God. You know, I always remember when my mom had some anxiety when she was forgetting things, and I would always say, Mom, do you trust God? And she would say, yes. And I saw this wave of calmness come over her, you know. And now when I get afraid, I ask myself, Kelly, do you believe in God? Do you have faith? You know, do you trust God? And, you know, it's always the same. It is a yes. And that if we have difficult times or doubt or anger or upset comes into our life, it's all making room for the beloved, creating an inner home that's free of the aspects of ego, the disconnection and you know, the negativity, the criticism, the judgments, all the ways the ego shows up, the past and the future in our life. So a beautiful thing is to just pray for that attunement, connecting and strengthening our relationship like God. And, you know, praying like a child is a beautiful thing. You know, we all must become children again to enter the kingdom of heaven. But that beautiful simplicity and that childlike faith, you know. And there's a beautiful story in Autobiography of Yogi of Mukunda and his sister Uma. And they were out on their Calcutta home. They were on the porch, and they're watching what they do in India is a kite match. And so there's two teams, and they have this kite that's flying in the air, and one team has to run and try to cut the string and then catch the other person's kite. And so they're watching this, and Yogananda, his name was Mukunda when he was a child, and he had this little smirk on his face, and Uma's like, what's that little smirk for? And he said, I'm just thinking how nice it is that Divine Mother listens to everything I ask for. She's always listening to my prayers. And Uma said, I bet you want to pray for that kite to come to you. He said, I can have both those kites come to me. And he just went inside and he talked to Divine Mother. And he just asked, you know, Divine Mother, may I have those kites? And the first one, whoop, it came off the string and right to him. And he's like, oh, and Uma's like, that was just luck, you know, and you can't do that again. And the second cut was cut and it went into a cactus, and then it hit another roof, and it went all over the place, but finally it came to him. And in that moment, you know, both kites had come to him and answered to his prayer. And Uma said, you know, she was shocked. She said, indeed, Divine Mother listens to you. And Divine Mother listens to all of us. And we are all her children. We're all her babies. And we're all trying to do the best we can to emotionally mature and come into living in our highest and best. And yet, you know, faith is really developed by our experiences and what we go through, and really knowing that communication with our beloved is deepening our capacity to open to different experiences that bring us into faith. And through deep meditation, we expand into that God country. You know, God country is a place where fear and doubt cannot exist. Fear and faith, you know, it's all about bridging that fear to faith, right? All over and over. When fear comes up, it's a call to faith over and over and over again. The ego is fear. Faith is our self-realized self, our higher self, our true self. Even just take a moment right now and just lift your awareness to the spiritual eye and just watch that beautiful diaphragmatic breath. As you inhale, the belly expands and lifts up to the heart, and exhale, releases. And just see if there's any fear or discomfort, anything that's worrying you, any pain, any hurt that lives in you, and just be with it with unconditional attention, a willingness to be with it, to bring the light of our awareness into any discomfort and the breath of transformation. In every experience, we're able to transmute and move into that. This is how we make space for the beloved. And this is how faith begins to grow deeper and deeper within our body temple, within our heart, and within our soul. From fear to faith, from ego to self-realization. Beautiful. And so a beautiful story about meditation is the example of Saint, what was his name? Saint Anthony. And so Saint Anthony lived in Egypt, and he loved to come and go into seclusion and to be in deep meditation and deep prayer. And he just wanted to be in union with God. He just wanted to live connected to God, and he did that very deeply and for a long period of time. But all of a sudden there was a moment in history where there became a great controversy, and it was a religious controversy. And one side said Jesus is a divine incarnation and enlightened being, and the other side said Jesus is a wise teacher, but not an exalted being. And chaos erupted. And there was incredible, arguing and doubt and restlessness. And the people in the congregation were looking to their leaders that didn't know. And it really created a divisiveness and a division in the church in Alexandria. And so the monks came to Egypt and came to find St. Anthony and said to him, please, I know you don't want to leave your seclusion, but this is so important. We need you. We really, truly need you. And so reluctantly, St. Anthony came back from his beautiful sanctuary, and he was asked to come, and he came to the Alexandria church, and he was there. They asked him to solve this debate, but instead he just quietly and humbly walked into the back of the church and just sat. And just by sitting there, his calming presence, his spiritual presence was so great that everyone stopped fighting and everything became very quiet. And St. Anthony rarely spoke, but these 4 words changed the course of Christianity. I have seen him. His personal experience was so pure and real. He lived so deeply in his heart experience. that Christ was recognized as an incarnation of God through those 4 words, I have seen him. And it just exuded from him, right? That beautiful light, that sense of beingness. It stopped all the debates, stopped all the arguments. And within us too, you know, that arguments we have within ourselves or with others, it's like keep choosing love over and over, keep tuning up. And this experience more and more through deeper, ever-fast meditation within creates more and more opportunities for us to really have the experience of God and develop so much more intensely that beautiful power of faith. Because faith is free of doubt, it's an intuitive knowing, and the soul knows God is the only reality. His power to move mountains and live a life filled with hope, trust, and amazing grace. So yeah, we can all move mountains, as in the reading, right? We can move these things that seem like obstacles in our life, and we can rise up to live in a higher way, more and more with the great gurus of self-realization, with all our tools of energization and Kriya Yoga and service and coming together in satsang and in our beautiful music, all these ways of uplifting and increasing our vibration more and more and more. We live and embody divine faith and that power of faith. Many years ago in an Indian market at the base of the Himalayan mountains, a great saint bumped into a mountain climber. And this holy man was very simple. He just had on very, his what is that, a dhoti? Yeah, dhoti. And he had, just dreadlocks, and he was just dedicating his whole life to the simplicity of God and just sat and meditated in the mountains. But he was at that market, and he met this mountain climber, and, he's just interested, and he said, tell me about your adventures in the Himalayan mountains. They're so powerful. They're so spiritual. And the guy's like, listen, don't even talk to me. I don't want to hear from you. And he just began to berate him. He said, mind your own business. And he was judgmental, and he was just really offensive to this beautiful yogi. And he said, ends up bragging and saying, well, I'm going to climb Mount Everest, and just walks out the door. And this mountain climber, American mountain climber, he gets all his supplies, and he starts climbing out the mountain in the weather. And there was great, great difficulty. He slipped a bunch of times. It was so cold. The elements were so difficult. It was arduous and difficult more and more and more. He was suffering. But finally, he did make it to the peak. And know what he sees? The yogi sitting on the top of that mountain meditating. And he said, what are you doing here? And the yogi said, well, how did you get here? Certainly you didn't walk. So this is example of a beautiful power that we can all, when we have faith and doubt not, we can all move mountains. We can move to the top of a mountain. We can live on the most expanding consciousness and live in the highest way more and more and more when we get free. So let's partner up with God. Let's strengthen our bond of attunement. Let's say, yes, I believe in God and its power to bring me closer and closer to my highest aspirations, and all good things will come unto all of us. Om, peace. Amen. And now we'll have our offering.